Thank you, Simply Safe, for sponsoring this week's video. Simply Safe is incredibly effective, reliable home security that will make sure your home is safe. We've had Simply Safe here at the ranch for nearly 2 years now. This is a Simply Safe water sensor that's tied into our system. If we ever had a pipe break for any reason, if it gets below freezing, that's part of the reason I keep it on this wall. If it gets below freezing and it breaks, obviously it's going to notify me through the app on the phone. I don't even have to be here to get that notification. Entry sensors, freeze sensor, glass break, water, panic, motion sensors, base station, keypad, carbon monoxide detector, smoke detector, smart lock. I can't wait to try that. Simply Safe cam. Doorbell cam, regular cam, yard sign. Okay, so that system's gonna get installed out here in the shop, and I must say over and over and over again, it is so easy to install. It's just so important to note that the monitoring center will call the police if it's ever alerted to anything. And it cost me less than 50 cents a day.
Simply Safe on. Home.
Visit simplysafe.com/Red Poppy Ranch to learn more information. And remember, when you're supporting Simply Safe, you're supporting us.
Okay, I have decided that before I do anything drastic, I'm going to take care of a few simple things on the skid steer. The first thing I want to do is replace all of the return fuel line coming off the injectors. When I first got it, it was spewing diesel all over the place. I picked up some braided, diesel rated fuel line. I want to get that done. Then I'm going to pull the solenoids off individually, clean them and inspect them. Look at the spools, see if the spools are worn. I may order some new coils for them. I kind of just want to go through the simple stuff before I start making some drastic decisions about where to go next. I feel like it is in the solenoids on the hydraulics. I really do. I've checked all the electrical, as far as the electrical connections on them, and they all look good. And so I'm going to start with the simple stuff, and then I'm going to change out all of the hydraulic fluid as well. One way or another, I'm going to get this skid steer figured out. Slowly but surely, I'm taking care of the obvious things first. Replacing the battery cables with better cables and replacing an old dry rotted fuel lines is an easy place to start.
So you live in the dream. You should see it through someone else's side. Another cipher to break, while the grass grows underneath my feet. Been running out of time for so long. Hello, 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 Leah. Now I'm running out of so long. Hello, 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 Leah. Hope I got the time to tell you. Hello, 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 Leah. Hello, Leah. No wonder you got a pure heart, kind of honesty that will always stay. Don't ever let him bring you down. What a terrible thing to say. Trembling across my fingers out of sight. Hello, 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 Leah. I was lost inside a maze of night. Hello, 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 Leah. I stayed up and watched you till daylight.
Is it possible that's our problem?
Hello, hello, hello,
Let's see if
Leah.
we can't clean that up.
Hello, 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 Leah. Hello, 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 Leah. Hello, 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 Leah.
That coil pack looked bad enough that I'm gonna pull these two coil packs, pull that big one, and without even pulling the valve body, just clean them, because that was so, it's obvious that water's been running across that. I need to order a new seal kit for it, but truthfully, I don't even have to pull the whole valve block out. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing and pull the coil packs and just inspect them, but I need to clean them off first to make sure no debris gets down in there. As far as the skid steer is concerned, I want to know that I went through and tried to fix any and all of the small things and any maintenance that may need to be done before I start removing big things like hydraulic pumps or drive motors. Okay, I've got one solenoid left right here. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to leave the valve body sitting where it's at and just pull the coil pack and the spool out of it and let a little bit of hydraulic fluid leak out of it. It seems like these two must be more prone to moisture than the other one, so I'm going to clean it off and then see if we can't get it out of there. I just want to make for certain that I've done everything I can before we pull out a hydraulic pump. Part of the reason I wanted to have a skid steer around our property is mainly because of the versatility of the machine. They make just about every attachment you can possibly imagine for this machine. The fact that we are hillside means that I need to be a little bit careful so I don't tip it over. But even if it did happen to get tipped over, it's not the end of the world. It seems like it's quite common for people to tip these things over, although I hope that never happens to us. I wanted to make sure that the coils that are attached to the solenoids were clean and in good contact. Okay, now I'm gonna set the cab down and fire this thing up. See if it made any difference. Then I'm gonna change the hydraulic fluid, but man, that'd be wonderful that if that's all that it was. The more I read online, the more I felt like this was a repair that would be easy to do, and it would check a few of the things off the list, narrowing down just in fact what the problem is with the skid steer. Since doing the repair to the solenoids, the skid steer has never ran better, but I still have the same problem. After 25 to 30 minutes, it seems like the right drive motor locks up and the left drive motor only wants to go in reverse.
Pull the chains off.
As I made an effort to remove the snow where we walk out to feed the goats and the chickens, the skid steer slid down into the fence, made a little bit of a mess, and it just reminded me that I need to get a good set of tire chains for the skid steer if I'm going to try and use this thing in the snow. It seems everything comes the hard way around here, whether I like it or not. I flushed the old hydraulic fluid out, hoping that I would see a whole lot of water, and I didn't really see that much. It was a little bit dirty, and there was a tiny, tiny bit of water in it, but nowhere near as much as I thought there would be. Either way, when I purchased the skid steer, it came with 20 gallons of new hydraulic fluid, so it didn't cost me anything to change it out. All right, this thing was about a gallon short. Should have around 16 gallons, maybe even more than a gallon actually, maybe a gallon and a half short. I don't know if that's the factor or not, but I'm gonna put all new fluid into it, all new hydraulic fluid into it. And then I'm gonna run to town and I'm gonna pick up a product that I think could help. It's basically, it just kind of helps the seals tighten up a little bit. You know, I can't decide what the heck's going on with this thing. I drove it over to the neighbors the other night, turned it off, went to leave. I couldn't get it to do anything, controls anything. Let it sit overnight. Drove it home. I've been running it for probably 45 minutes. Granted, I dumped it into the fence and tore the fence up. I need to get a set of chains for this thing, but it still runs fine. It's still, you know, I keep thinking that it's the hydraulic pump. I still kind of feel it's like it's the hydraulic pump, but even after it's getting up to temperature, now all of a sudden it's still running. So I'm going to put new fluid in it, go pick up that Lucas stuff and see if it helps. Okay, that shows on the sight glass. It's plenty high. I picked this stuff up last night because somebody recommended it to me, and it might be a little bit of putting a band-aid on a bigger problem, but this stuff is not bad for a hydraulic system. As a matter of fact, I think it lowers the rate at which a system wears when you use it. It's recommended for brand new hydraulic systems. I put 2 gallons. I can run as much as 20% in my system. I put 2 gallons, which is probably about 15%. I'm curious, it's supposed to help pumps, it's supposed to help seals. It's really supposed to be, again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like some of these, you know, like radiator stop leak stuff, you know, and head gasket stop leak. This is actually good for it. So I'm gonna start it up, run it around, see if it makes a difference. For that first 25 minutes when the skid steer is working properly, it runs great. It does everything that it should do and has plenty of power. but at some point that right side locks up and I'm usually stuck. The additive that I put in the hydraulics really didn't seem to make that big of a difference. But I'm slowly working through it, and I'll keep trying to figure it out. So I'm trying to make a little bit more room for parking. I want to get that trailer a little bit further back so I can put the crew cab on this side because my little brother and his wife and kids are about to show up. But I just kind of figured something out there. That thing ran for about 45 minutes. And once the, I don't know if it's a temperature thing now, but once it got to a certain point, it's almost like the drive motors on both sides get stuck in either forward or reverse, but the right drive motors wouldn't work at all. But then as I raised and lowered the bucket, the lift arms in the bucket, that released something and it just caused it to release again. So I think I'm going to have a buddy of mine look at it and see if we can diagnose if this is a hydraulic pump problem still, if that's in fact what it is. I don't know. I know those drive motors, the brakes on the drive motors require at least, I think, 300 PSI to get them to release. And I wonder if the pressure's dropping enough to where that's not happening, but I don't know. I'm kind of getting to the end of my rope with this thing as far as diagnosing is concerned. I may have somebody diagnose it, at least help me diagnose it, and then I can do the work to get it figured out. But because the frame horns had been cut on Rhett's truck, I need to weld the new frame horns back on it before we can set the bed in place. Rhett mentioned in a previous video that we need to have these frame horns for the receiver hitch to work properly. Using my arc welder generator that I've had for a few years now, I quickly burned in the new frame horns, cleaned them up a little bit with a grinder, and I made sure the welds were good and hot so that these frame horns stay in place, because I'm sure, like my truck, this truck will also do a lot of towing. Okay, now inch it forward a little bit.
That's right where it's supposed to be.
Hey, buddy. What up, dude? My little brother showed up in the nick of time, and he helped me and Rhett get the truck bed in place. Now it's Rhett's job to get it bolted down. My little brother lives down in southern Arizona with his wife and kids, and although I talk to him on a regular basis, I don't get to see him as much as I wish I did. So I'm sure excited to have him and his family here with us for a few days, even though the conditions aren't as good as they could be, as it's a bit of a muddy mess right now. We ran down and picked up my new Bradford aluminum flatbed that I've been waiting on for a little while. And my little brother not only helped me get it back up here to the place, but he also helped me dry fit it, make sure it looked right, and helped me consider how I would mount it properly to the crew cab Chevy truck.
There she goes, dude. That's pretty bad.
Now I just gotta get me a border collie to ride to that.
And your rope up there, put your hooks across.
Okay, next step on the truck is gonna be the lift kit and getting this thing permanently fixed. It's the perfect look. It's what I was hoping for. I found the toolbox fuel tank combo yesterday on the local Facebook or something, and picked it up for the right price, and that's a perfect combination. So. Seeing that flatbed on the truck was all the motivation I needed to get the lift, the wheels and tires back on that truck and get that truck ready to be a daily driver. I have a feeling I'll end up driving that truck more than Cedar does, but I'll let her make that decision. Okay, if I hit something, yell at me. We ran down to the scrapyard, picked up some pretty heavy gauge square tubing that we'll use to mount the aluminum flatbed to the frame of the 1-ton Chevy truck. We're going to take care of this. The aluminum flatbed has an iron C-channel frame underneath it that we will attach the square tubing to, then secure it to the frame of the truck with carriage bolts.
Yeah, he says. Yeah, the last one, so his company only worked 4 teams.
What we found when we were dry fitting the bed with wood was that we were about 3 inches up front, 2.5 in the back to get it to fit right. We ran down to the scrap yard. I managed to find a couple of pieces of scrap steel, had to buy a little bit. So the plan is to drill it out to where it fits the factory mounts where the bed originally sits, and then use carriage bolts to lag it down. But then I'm going to take these 4 pieces and weld them to the C-channel that's part of the Bradford bed. So it will not be welded to the frame, but it will be welded to these brackets. This bed has a 5th wheel hitch in it. I need to make sure this thing is not going anywhere, and so that's part of the reason that the bigger, beefier square tubing was used. So. Don't forget to visit simplysafe.com/redpoppyranch to learn more.